Eli Carter didn't have enough cash in his wallet to buy a hot dog, but his 6-year-old daughter was tugging at his hand like it was the most important day of her life. "Daddy, do you think the lions are awake yet?" Naomi's eyes sparkled behind her pink sunglasses, gripping her stuffed penguin with one arm while her other hand clung to his. "I hope so," Eli said, adjusting the fraying strap on his backpack. "They probably heard you were coming." She giggled, skipping a step ahead of him as they reached the front of the zoo. The line was long, the sun was brutal, and Eli could already feel the sweat gathering under his collar. His shirt was too old for the heat, but he'd worn it anyway. It was still the cleanest he had. He glanced at the ticket prices, swallowing hard. He had just enough for 2 general admissions and 1 ice cream if he skipped lunch. Behind him, a woman in designer sunglasses and a crisp white blouse stepped in line. Naomi turned to look at her, then whispered, "She looks like a movie star." Eli smiled without turning around. "Maybe she is." The woman tilted her head at the sound of Naomi's voice, a quiet smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. She wore tailored trousers and heels way too nice for a zoo. Her name was Nadia Donovan, and she wasn't a movie star. She was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. But in that moment, she was just a woman who decided she needed a day off after a board meeting left her drained. She looked at the man ahead of her broad shoulders, messy dark hair, and a tired look in his eyes. His daughter was bouncing on her toes, and he looked at her like she was the sun. Nadia didn't know why, but something about the way he held his daughter's hand made her chest feel tight. "2 tickets, Eli said to the attendant, pulling out a handful of crumpled bills and carefully counting them. 1 adult, 1 child. He stepped aside with Naomi, who was already pointing at a map of the zoo. "I want to see the flamingos next." "And then the bears." "All right, kiddo," he said, grinning, "but we start with the lions." Nadia bought her ticket a second later and walked in behind them, not expecting to see them again, but fate had other plans. She was sipping a lemonade near the giraffe enclosure when she spotted the same man lifting his daughter onto his shoulders so she could see better. The little girl squealed with delight, and he laughed out loud, a deep, genuine sound that made Nadia's stomach twist. She didn't realize she was staring until Naomi noticed her. "Hi," Naomi waved from her dad's shoulders. "We saw you in line," Nadia smiled, walking over. "Hi there, looks like you're having fun." "We are," Naomi said. "My dad said the lions probably woke up just to see me." Eli turned, eyes meeting Nadia's for the first time. She was stunning. Elegant, but not cold. Her smile was warm, and her eyes were curious, like she was trying to figure him out. "Sorry if she's bothering you," Eli said quickly. "She's not," Nadia replied. "She's adorable," Naomi beamed. "Wanna come see the flamingos with us?" Eli blinked. Sweetie, I'd love to," Nadia said before he could finish. Eli hesitated, then shrugged. "All right, why not?" They walked together, Naomi skipping between them. Eli kept glancing sideways at Nadia, wondering why someone like her was talking to someone like him. She had the kind of polish that came with money and power. He could see it in the way she moved, the way she dressed. He didn't ask questions, though. He was just grateful she didn't seem to mind spending time with a broke single dad and his excitable daughter. She asked questions. About Naomi's favorite animals. About Eli's job. He hesitated, but told her the truth. "I'm working part-time at a hardware store. Was doing construction before, but..." "Things changed. And her mom?" Nadia asked gently. "Left a few years ago," he said, keeping his tone even. "Just me and Naomi now." Nadia nodded. "She's lucky to have you." He didn't know how to respond to that. Most people just said sorry and looked away. They ended up spending the whole afternoon together. Nadia bought 3 ice creams without blinking, and when Naomi fell asleep in a shady spot near the penguin exhibit, Eli looked down at her and smiled. "She's something," Nadia said softly. "She's everything," Eli said. Their eyes met again. And something shifted. He felt it, the quiet pull in his chest, the strange feeling of being seen. Not pitied, not judged, just seen. "I should probably get her home," Eli said, gently lifting Naomi into his arms. Nadia hesitated. "Can I walk you to your car?" "I took the bus." She blinked, then quickly recovered. "Then I'll walk you to the exit." As they reached the gates, he turned to her. "Thank you for hanging out with us." "Thank you," she said. "I didn't know I needed today until now." He gave her a small smile. "Maybe we'll see you again." "Maybe," she said softly. But as he walked away, holding his daughter close, Nadia stood there for a long time, watching him disappear into the crowd. She didn't know his last name, but she knew one thing: she wanted to see him again. 3 days passed before Eli saw her again. He was shelving paint cans at the hardware store, trying to ignore the dull ache in his lower back from lifting too many boxes. Naomi was at school, and he was covering an extra shift because one of the guys had called out sick. The pay wasn't great, but every hour counted. The bell above the front door jingled. He didn't look up until a quiet voice said, "Do you have any idea how hard it is to find you?" Eli straightened so fast he knocked over a can of primer. He grabbed it before it hit the floor, then turned. Nadia stood there, her hair tied back this time, wearing jeans and a navy blazer, still elegant but less formal, more real. "You are hi," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "What are you doing here?" I asked around at the zoo. "Said I was trying to return a lost stuffed animal." She looked at him carefully. "I wasn't sure I'd find you," he blinked. "You came all this way. For Peggy the penguin?" "I came for her dad," she said bluntly. His heart tripped. "Look, I'm flattered, really. But this isn't exactly a great time." "I'm not asking for a date," she said. "I'm asking if you want to get coffee after your shift, just coffee." He hesitated. "I have to pick Naomi up at 3. Then I'll make it quick." He looked at the manager, who waved him off without asking questions. 15 minutes, Eli said. They ended up at a corner cafe 2 blocks away. She ordered something with oat milk and cinnamon. He got drip coffee, black. "I wasn't sure you'd say yes," she said, stirring her drink with a tiny wooden stick. "I wasn't sure I should," Eli said, wrapping his hands around the paper cup. "You seem like someone who usually talks to people in boardrooms, not broom closets." She tilted her head. "And you seem like someone who thinks he doesn't belong in either." He didn't answer that. Instead, he said, "Why me? You didn't try to impress me. You didn't ask what I did or where I live or what I drive. You were just there." "Real? You say that like it's rare." "It is." He drank his coffee in silence for a moment, then asked, "So what do you actually do?" "I run a company," she said simply. "Tech. We build platforms for logistics and inventory systems." He let out a low whistle. "That sounds complicated." "It is, but I like it." "Must pay pretty well," he said, then immediately regretted it. Her eyes didn't flinch. "It does." He looked down at his hands. "And yet here you are, in a cafe with a guy who can't afford a decent pair of work boots. You're not a project, Eli." "I'm not here to fix you." "Then what are you here for?" she answered without hesitation. "To see if that feeling I had at the zoo wasn't in my head." He didn't know what to say to that. When she glanced at the time, he realized how fast 15 minutes had gone. "I should get Naomi," he said quickly, standing. Nadia rose with him. "I'll walk with you." "You don't have to." "I want to." They walked the few blocks in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable, just full of things neither of them knew how to say yet. Outside the school, Naomi came barreling out of the building and stopped short when she saw Nadia. "You came back," she shouted, flinging her backpack over her shoulder. Nadia crouched to her level. "I told you I might." Eli watched his daughter's face light up. That look was everything. "Want to come see our apartment?" Naomi asked. "We live on the 3rd floor and we have a cat named Waffles, even though he's not allowed." "Naomi," Eli warned gently, but Nadia smiled. "I'd love to." Eli hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but don't judge the mess." "I won't," she said. "I grew up in a studio with 4 siblings. Trust me, mess doesn't scare me." The walk took less than 10 minutes. Their building was old, the paint peeling in places, but the inside was clean and bright. Eli unlocked the door and stepped aside to let her in. The apartment smelled faintly of cinnamon and laundry soap. A stack of books teetered on the end table, and a blanket fort stood half-collapsed in the corner. "Waffles," Naomi called, and a gray tabby darted from under the couch. Nadia bent to pet him, her bracelet catching the light. Eli watched her kneel beside his daughter and his cat like she belonged. He didn't understand it, but he couldn't deny the feeling in his chest. Later, when Naomi was drawing pictures at the kitchen table, Nadia stood beside the window, looking out at the street. "You're not what I expected," she said softly. "Neither are you," he replied. She turned to face him. "I want to see you again, both of you." Eli looked at his daughter, then back at her. What exactly are you looking for, Nadia? Her answer was quiet, honest, something real. Something that doesn't come with headlines or stock projections, just a life. He didn't know if he could offer her that, but he knew one thing: he wanted to try. Did you paint that? Nadia asked, pausing in front of a small canvas propped up on the edge of Eli's kitchen counter. The brush strokes were uneven, but the sunset was unmistakable burnt orange bleeding into crimson, a single tree silhouetted against the sky. Eli shook his head. Naomi did. Last week. She has an eye for color, Nadia said, turning slightly so her voice wouldn't carry to the little girl in the next room. I think so too, Eli replied quietly. I just have no idea what to do with it. Nadia turned to face him. What do you mean? I mean, she's talented, creative. Bright, but I can barely keep up with groceries. I want her to have more than just crayons and paper from the dollar store. You're giving her stability, love. That's more than a lot of kids get. He leaned against the wall, arms folded. Sometimes I wonder if it's enough. Nadia studied him for a long moment. Have you ever thought about doing something different, something beyond the hardware store? Eli exhaled through his nose. I used to design custom furniture, back when I had access to a workshop. Before the bills started piling up. Now I stick to fixing leaky pipes and praying the rent check doesn't bounce. Nadia's brow furrowed. You built furniture, tables, desks, once made a rocking chair that didn't creak a single time. I used to love it. But then Naomi came along and priorities shifted. Custom woodwork doesn't pay fast. She walked over to the canvas again. What if there was a way to do both? He looked at her warily. What, like start a business? More like, get back to what you're good at, she said. I have a friend who curates local artists and artisans for boutique hotels. They're always looking for handcrafted pieces, real work by real people. I can't afford to invest in materials, let alone shop space. You wouldn't have to, she said. I can cover the startup costs. As a loan, his jaw tightened. I'm not a charity case, Nadia. I didn't say you were. I'm saying I believe in people who build things with their hands, and I believe in you. He looked away. That's a lot of belief for someone you barely know. She stepped closer. I've spent years in rooms full of people who only care about numbers. You're the first person I've met in a long time who actually builds something that lasts, that matters. Naomi appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Can we go to the park, Daddy? Sure, honey. Give me 2 minutes, okay? She nodded and padded back to her room. Eli turned back to Nadia. I appreciate the offer, but I need to do this on my own. Then let me help you find a way that still feels like yours, she said. No handouts. Just options. He didn't respond, but she didn't push him. They ended up at a small neighborhood park, Naomi running ahead to climb the jungle gym while Nadia and Eli sat on a bench beneath a brittle old tree. The sun was starting to dip, casting long shadows over the splintered wood chips. You always this persistent? He asked. She shrugged. Only when I care, he glanced at her sideways. Is that what this is? I don't know yet, she admitted, but I know I want to find out. He watched Naomi hang upside down from the monkey bars, her laughter echoing across the empty space. I've tried not to want anything outside of her. It's safer that way. Safe isn't the same as whole, Nadia said. He turned to her. You ever been married? No, she replied. Came close once. He thought my ambition made me cold. And was he right? She paused. Maybe back then. I stopped letting people in because I thought it made me stronger. But now I'm not so sure. They sat in silence for a moment. I'm not great at relationships, Eli said. I second-guess everything. I push people away when things get complicated. I'm not looking for perfect, she said. I'm looking for honest. Naomi ran over, hair tangled and cheeks flushed. Miss Nadia, can you come to my school art night next week? We get to show our paintings. Nadia smiled. I'd love to. Eli looked startled. You don't have to, I want to, she cut in. If that's okay with you, he hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, it's okay. As they walked back to the apartment, Nadia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. Everything all right? Eli asked. That was my assistant, she said. There's an event tomorrow night. One of those black tie galas with too many cameras and not enough food. Sounds fun. It's not, but I'm expected to be there. She paused. Come with me, he blinked. You want me to what? Come. As my guest. I don't own a suit. I'll take care of that. I don't belong in places like that, Nadia. Then come show them what they're missing. He laughed once, bitterly. You really think I'm going to fit in with billionaires and CEOs? You don't need to fit in, she said. You just need to show up as yourself. He looked at her for a long moment. Why are you doing this? Because I want to see what happens when two people stop pretending they're not drawn to something real. That night, after Nadia left and Naomi was tucked into bed, Eli stood in the kitchen staring at the canvas she'd painted. There was a tiny figure in the corner of the sunset, barely noticeable, but there. He hadn't seen it before, a man holding a little girl's hand. He touched the edge of the canvas with one finger, then picked up his phone. His voice was low when he spoke into the receiver. Hey, Mike. You still have that old suit I borrowed for your wedding? He listened for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, I might need it for something. Eli adjusted the collar of the borrowed suit, staring at his reflection in the mirrored elevator wall. The fabric was a little tight in the shoulders, and the shoes pinched like hell, but at least the tie matched. Naomi had chosen it from a small rack at a second-hand store, declaring it fancy but not boring. He didn't know what that meant, but he wore it anyway. The elevator chimed. Nadia was waiting just past the doors in a navy gown that shimmered like deep water under the chandelier light. Her hair was swept into a low twist, and diamond earrings caught the light as she tilted her head to meet his eyes. You clean up well, she said, offering a small smile. He gave a low whistle. You look like something out of a painting. She linked her arm through his, and together they walked into the event hall. The room was a sea of black suits and glittering gowns, champagne flutes clinking over hushed laughter and polished conversations. A string quartet played near the back wall, and waiters glided between guests like shadows. Eli had never felt more out of place in his life. Nadia leaned in. You okay? I'm standing on a rug that probably costs more than my entire apartment, he muttered. You're doing fine, she said. Just breathe, and don't let anyone make you feel small. A man approached them near the bar. He was tall, with a sharp jaw and a watch that looked like it belonged in a museum. His eyes flicked to Eli, then back to Nadia. I heard you'd be bringing someone unexpected, he said, offering his hand. Damien Loring, board chair. Eli shook his hand. Eli Carter. Damien's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. And what is it you do, Mr. Carter? I build things, Eli said simply. Damien raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Nadia's voice cut in, smooth as glass. He's one of the most talented craftsmen I've ever met. Which reminds me, Damien, your boutique project in Aspen. You're still looking for someone to design the lobby installations, aren't you? Damien blinked. Yes, but Eli's work would be perfect, she said. I'll send you his portfolio tomorrow. Eli stared at her, stunned. Damien gave a short nod. I'll look forward to it. As he walked away, Eli turned to her. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, she said. You belong in rooms like this, Eli, not because of a suit or a title. Because you have something real to offer. He looked around the room again, still feeling like an imposter, but the weight of her words settled in his chest like something solid. Later, on the rooftop terrace, the night stretched out in quiet elegance. The skyline glittered, and the buzz of the party softened behind glass doors. Nadia leaned against the railing, arms bare under the chill breeze. Why do you still do these events? Eli asked, stepping beside her. Because if I don't show up, people think I'm slipping, she said. And in my world, slipping means bleeding. You stop looking sharp, someone sharper cuts you out. He glanced at her. Must be exhausting. It is, she said, but tonight was different. He turned to face her. Because of me. Because I remembered what it feels like to enjoy being seen. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I don't care about your company or your position. I just care about the woman who showed up at the zoo in heels and still knelt down to talk to my daughter. Her eyes softened. I didn't expect you, Eli. I didn't expect any of this. I didn't either, he said, but I know what I want now. She took a step closer. What's that? You. Not just for tonight. For the days when the sink leaks and the cat claws the couch and Naomi paints the walls because she thinks they're boring. I want the hard days, the messy mornings, and the quiet nights. I want all of it with you. Her breath caught. You're serious. I've never been more sure of anything. She reached up, fingers brushing his jaw. Then come with me. Where? She pulled a small envelope from her clutch. There's a property outside the city, an old house with a barn and a workshop. I bought it a year ago, thinking I'd turn it into a retreat, but I never touched it. He opened the envelope, revealing photos, sunlight pouring through tall windows, weathered wood beams, a space that begged to be lived in. I want to build something real, she said, not just walls and floors. A life, a home, with you and Naomi if she'll let me. He stared at the photos, then looked up at her. You're offering me a future. No, she said softly. I'm offering us one. The next afternoon, Naomi stood on the porch of the new house, her backpack slung over one shoulder and waffles curled around her feet. She looked up at the sky, then at the two people standing behind her. Is this really ours? She asked. Eli crouched beside her. It's home, Nadia smiled, and this room over here, it's going to be your art studio. Naomi squealed and bolted inside, her laughter echoing through the empty halls. Eli turned to Nadia. This still doesn't feel real. She took his hand. Then let's make it real. One day at a time. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. I love you, she smiled. I love you too. They stood on that porch, arms wrapped around each other while the sun dipped low behind the trees. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something to fear. It felt like something they were already building together. Rain tapped gently against the wide windows of the old farmhouse, the kind that made everything outside look softer, like the world had finally slowed down. Inside, the kitchen was filled with the scent of rosemary and lemon. Eli was at the stove, stirring something in a cast iron pan while music played low from a speaker tucked on the counter. Nadia stood across from him, sleeves rolled up, chopping fresh herbs with a practiced hand. You've gotten better with a knife, Eli said, glancing up. Last time you tried to dice an onion, it ended with a band-aid and a lot of cursing. I watched a tutorial, she replied, nudging a pile of parsley into the bowl. I figured if I'm going to live with someone who actually cooks, I should learn how not to embarrass myself. You could burn toast, and I'd still think you were brilliant, he said. She leaned forward, elbows on the counter. You say that now. Wait until I try baking. He turned off the burner and reached for a pair of plates. Naomi's upstairs, painting. She said she's working on a surprise mural. I didn't ask questions. Eli laughed, setting out silverware. Should I be worried? Probably, Nadia said with a grin. But it's washable paint. I checked this time. As they sat down to eat, the rain picked up. It wasn't heavy, just steady enough to blur the edges of the world outside. The house had become theirs slowly through long weekends, fixing up the barn, turning the extra room into a studio, and planting a garden Naomi had named the Jungle of Snacks. Eli had built 3 tables since they moved in, each one already sold before the final coat of varnish dried. Word had spread through Nadia's connections, and now he had a waitlist, not clients, he insisted, just people who appreciated good woodwork. He still handled every order himself, refusing to outsource anything that didn't pass through his own hands. You heard back from the Aspen project, Nadia asked as she reached for her water. Yeah, they want a set of benches for the lobby, custom grain, curved backs, no deadline, and they're covering the freight. You'll need help eventually, she said. I know, he replied. I just want to train someone first. I want it done right. She nodded. You'll get there. After dinner, they curled up on the couch, a worn quilt over their legs and Waffles' fatter now purring on the windowsill. The house didn't creak as much anymore, thanks to Eli's repairs, and the fireplace crackled softly. I got a call from the board today, Nadia said, her voice quiet. Eli looked at her. Good news or bad? Unexpected, she replied. They offered me the chair position. He blinked. That's huge. I turned it down. He stared at her. You what? I don't want that life anymore, she said. I thought I did. I thought I needed it, but I don't. I like being here. I like building something that isn't measured in quarterly reports. He studied her for a long moment. Are you sure? I've never been more. She reached into her sweater pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He froze. I know this isn't traditional, she said, opening it to reveal a simple silver ring, a tiny pine tree etched into the band. But neither are we. His eyes moved from the ring to her face. I'm not asking for a wedding with 500 guests or a dress that costs as much as a car, she said. I'm asking if you'll build the rest of this life with me, if we can keep growing something real. Together, He swallowed hard, heart pounding. "You're insane," he whispered. "I know." He took the box from her hand, slid the ring onto his finger, and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like rain and rosemary and every promise he'd never dared to make until now. "I was going to ask you," he said into her hair. "I've had a ring in the workshop for months. I just kept waiting for the right moment." "This felt right," she murmured. Naomi appeared at the top of the stairs, paint on her elbows and a streak of blue in her hair. "Did you say yes?" she called out. "Yes," Eli said, laughing. "She did." Naomi ran down, barefoot and beaming. "Can I be the flower girl?" "You can be the queen of the whole thing," Nadia said, holding out her arms. Naomi flung herself into her lap as Eli wrapped them both in his. That spring, they married beneath the tree line behind the house. It wasn't extravagant folding chairs, a handmade arch, and wildflowers from the garden, but every person who attended left knowing they'd witnessed something rare. During the ceremony, Nadia wore a soft ivory dress and a necklace Naomi had made from beads and string. Eli's ring was the one she'd given him, and hers was the one he'd carved from white oak, polished smooth and sealed with beeswax. They danced in the barn with fairy lights above them, and later, when the guests were gone and Naomi had fallen asleep in a nest of pillows, they lay on the porch swing, holding hands in the quiet. "This is the life I never knew I wanted," Eli said. "Same," Nadia whispered. As the stars blinked into view, they stayed there, two people who had found each other in the middle of the world and decided to build something lasting. No deadlines, no facades. Just love, exactly as it was meant to be.